Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Again, I always forget to move my microphone here closer to me so you guys can hear me better. Yes, my name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education here at TradeStation. And today we're going to do our Easy Language series. So we're going to get our hands on Easy Language programming, teach you certain syntax basics and how you can build some very, very cool Easy Language products in this specific topic, which is text drawing. I don't do a lot of text on the indicators that I usually create. Sometimes you just want to see the line on the candles or something to that effect. But whenever I do indicators like this, I say, well, this is kind of useful, to be able to plot text programmatically inside of a chart analysis window. So before we jump into the topic of text drawing, here are some disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone, and that historical backtest is no guarantee of any future results. For additional information, you have the link right there on this PowerPoint slide, www.tradestation.com/important-information, and you'll see all the disclosure links in there, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about text drawing in Easy Language and how, I'm not going to say it's easy, but once you do it a couple times, maybe a few times, it'll be second nature to you, because there is a certain syntax or a certain way that you have to write your Easy Language in order to plot text inside of a chart. And there are some things that you need to be aware of. We're going to talk about that and make sure that you have all the tools necessary to put text on a chart if that's what you need. First, you may draw text objects from any study or strategy, which is pretty cool, because a lot of, or not a lot, but some of the Easy Language words that we want to use sometimes are exclusive to just one type of Easy Language document. What I say by that is, and I'll give you a clear example. Let's suppose that you're working on an RSI and you have the RSI indicator at the bottom, but then you want to develop a strategy on the RSI. These two things are completely separate, So if you want to have a strategy that generates orders, then yeah, that's one thing. But if you want to see the RSI line inside of a chart, that's a separate thing. So you cannot take those two ideas and have an indicator or have let's say an Easy Language documents or an Easy Language document that does both things at the same time, because they don't work that way. So for a lot of strategy developers, they do struggle with the fact that you have to have the indicator and you have to have the strategy separate if you want to see them both on the chart. For text objects, you can use them both, which is a cool thing. You can use text objects inside of a study, and you can also use text objects inside of a strategy. I'm looking at some comments here from the chat. So you want to put a volume figure on the chart as a horizontal line showing the volume if it exceeds certain value. Yeah, those are things that you can do with this idea precisely. I'm going to share some custom code with everyone here, and we're going to probably work on some code here as well. So those are things that we can definitely do here. So you want a horizontal line showing the volume. But these are things that you have to think about and say, okay, first of all, where do you want that horizontal line? Because what I'm thinking about is you want the horizontal line to be on top of the candles. But the thing is that we cannot mix volume data with price data. We can put it together. The thing that the problem with that is that it's a scale. Usually, when we talk about volume, we're talking about high numbers. So on a scale, they would be very high, up here, like in the millions is what I'm talking about. And if you want to mix that with price, it's a little bit challenging to be able to plot price and volume on the same scale. Okay, so the first step in your question, Prasad, would be if you want to add a horizontal line, where would it be? Because you're saying, I want a horizontal line showing the volume. So would you want that to be on the indicator, I suppose, right? Okay. Those are things that we can work on. And I would generally suggest that you wait for our colleague, John Brook, so that he can help us with that. But it's something that we can certainly test out here. Let me continue on my topic and the way that I've prepared it, and then we can probably talk about that offline. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow we don't have a live session because it's a Good Friday, so we're off tomorrow. There are no classes tomorrow. But let's go ahead and do what we are here for, which is showing you how to do text annotations, and then we can figure out how to mold it to be what we want it to be. Text objects can be added to a chart through Easylanguage, which is the main reason why we're here. Everybody here knows that you can go to the drawing menu inside of a chart analysis, select text, and you can draw text directly on a chart. That's cool, right? But here we're going to do it through Easylanguage. So Easylanguage is going to draw the text directly on the chart for us. The price and data from hand-drawn text objects can be referenced through Easylanguage. Yes, when you hand draw some text on the chart, Easylanguage can see it and can identify it. Similar to when you draw a trend line. I'm not sure if you guys have used one of these built-in strategies instead of TradeStation that generates a trade based on a hand-drawn trend line. You can draw a trend line, and if the price touches that line, it'll generate an order. So you can see that Easylanguage is able to see any drawing that you do on the chart and identify it. Not the example we're going to work on today. We're going to do something a little bit more simple, but you're able to identify these objects when you draw them by hand. Text objects are anchored to a bar's date, time, and price. It is important to understand that. So when we create these text annotations in the chart, you're going to have to supply the date, the time, and the price on which the text annotation is going to appear. Very similar to what we did with trend lines. Trend lines also have a date and time and a price, not only one instance of that trio, but actually twice that. So we have the begin date, the begin time, and the begin price. And then you have the end date, the end time, and the end price if you were trying to draw a trend line. But here, since we're just adding text, all we need is an anchor point. And the anchor point, of course, has a date, a time, and a price. If you're using a multi-data chart, which we're not going to do in this example because we're going to, again, try to make it as simple as we can, but text objects appear in the same subgraph as the data on which the study is based. We've worked with multiple datas before, and you know that in Easylanguage, in order for you to reference a second or a third data stream, you do have to reference that data stream by the number, like data 1 or data 2. So in the calculation process, if you have text that is drawn based on the calculations of data 2 or data 3, the text will follow along and will just be plotted on the data on which it's calculated. So pretty cool. It does the calculation. It does the identification for you, and it puts the text drawing for the data that you're using in the calculation. Okay, so these are just things that you have to keep in mind when you draw text. Towards the end of this PowerPoint, I'm going to share 2 links that you can link to, providing you additional information on this. And by the way, I didn't do it at the beginning, but let me go ahead and share this PDF with everyone here. All right. So that's the content of the PowerPoint that I'm showing to you here. Let's go and continue. Text objects are not part of the chart scaling. This is something to keep in mind as well, because you may be working on an indicator or a strategy that plots text, and text is not identified as a regular study. So the scale is not going to be adjusted automatically. And I want to show you something here on TradeStation so you know exactly what I mean by that. So let me go here to TradeStation. Let me open up a chart analysis. So I want you to look at this chart of Microsoft. You can see where the bars up here are touching the edge, and you can see how the bars down here are touching the edge of the chart, the top to bottom. This happens automatically on TradeStation charting. As you squeeze the chart, the scaling is going to adjust in order to allow you to see other data points. You see the highest point is not the highest point on the chart anymore because we have a couple days here that had a higher price. And that, as I said before, happens automatically as you move the chart up and down. If you add a study, for example, and I'm going to add, like, for example, the Bollinger Band. I want you to see what happens here, especially in these areas where we're touching the edge right here on the top and at the bottom. If you add the Bollinger Band, the chart shifts. Now you can see that the candles are not touching the edge and the candles here are not touching the bottom because it allows space for the indicator so you can see the full indicator. Otherwise, it would just truncate the upper line of the Bollinger Band. So that's the way that the indicators work. They automatically adjust to show you all the plots of that indicator. Not the text though. When you plot text, it doesn't automatically resize the scale for you to see that text. So if you have any text plotted outside of the current chart scale, you won't see it. Okay, be aware of that because sometimes you may think, oh, something's broken. I'm not seeing my text. It's just that text doesn't force the scale to adjust automatically. You would have to come here and squeeze the scale in order to see any text if it was plotted up here or down here. Okay, so keep that in mind when we are working with text. Text objects are assigned a reference ID number, regardless of how it's drawn. So for the manually or the hand-drawn text objects and the ones that are drawn programmatically, they all will have a specific ID. Let me show you. Let me come here to TradeStation. I'm going to go to drawing, text, and I'm going to type here drawing, text, and I'm going to say this is text. All right, you can see my text annotation right there. If I click and hold on the text annotation, you can see that on the data tips window, it says text number 0. Starts at 0. The more text annotations you have, they'll all be assigned a specific number. Sometimes it is important to know that number because whenever you are changing the text, you want to reference that text by ID. We're going to look at a lot of reserved words in Easylanguage that allow you to not only create the text annotation, but also look at it and change maybe the position, change the location, change the alignment. A lot of things you can do to that text programmatically, and the ID number is going to be important. Okay, let me remove that text for now. The properties of the text can be adjusted after it's drawn. The color, the size, and the text can be set programmatically. Yes, what I do on my TradeStation is that I set the default font and size to something that applies to all the text. So when you have text already inserted, I shouldn't have deleted it, but I'll put it here again. This is my text. Okay, so that's my text annotation. I have snap mode on. That's why it's not able to be moved away from the bars, but now I just disabled snap mode and I'm able to drag my text right in here. My text is different than the default because I've changed the default. So draw some text by hand on a chart. And if you don't like the font, if you don't like the style, double click on it. If you double click on it, it'll go into edit mode. Right click on it instead. Right click and go to edit text. And in here, I can go to the style, change the color, change the way that it's aligned, then go to the font, change the font style, change the if you want it to be bold and a little larger, and set those settings as default. Make sure that you put a check on default so that they are applied to all text annotations that you do from that point forward. Not only does it change the default of your text annotations that you do manually, but it also takes on those settings when you draw text programmatically. So Easylanguage will know that you change the defaults. And when Easylanguage draws text, it'll use exactly what you put in here. So that's a good way to get ready for text annotations, to make sure that they're the right font, the right size, and they're legible on the screen. I had to change mine because I thought the font was a little bit too small, and I wanted to change the color and the size and so forth. So do that before you program the indicator to draw text. It'll be much easier. Multiple text objects can be drawn on a chart, generally conditionally. You'll see, we'll look at an example, and you'll see that sometimes you create an indicator that draws text, and for some reason, it just keeps on plotting the text every single bar. Sometimes that's a problem, but yeah, you can have multiple text objects added to the chart at once. So this is the syntax. The new text objects are created with the reserved word text new. You know, if you were in my class for trend line, you know that the reserved word is TL_new. So this is in a very similar syntax, but instead of TL for trend line, you have the word text. So it is a text_new. Whenever you are going to plot text, you have to store that text value in a variable. Value 1 is one of the TradeStation's pre-declared variables. So we have value 1 all the way to value 99, and you can use this without, having to declare them. But this could be also a user-defined variable. We're going to use value 1 because they're easy, and we're just using it to store the value. It's text_new, and inside parentheses, there's 3 things that are mandatory. And in this case, we have 4 different things, 4 different parameters. One of them is optional, which is, well, actually, no, there are 4, the 4 are necessary. I was thinking of this word in quotations more like a label, but it's not a label. This word in quotations is exactly what you want the text annotation to say. And if we don't put it in here, then we don't have text. So yes, we need to provide 4 different items when we have the text_new. The 4 items are going to be inside parentheses. We start with a bar date, bar time, bar price. Doesn't necessarily have to say bar price. It'll be a number. But then you have to put into quotations what you want the text to say. I think I have an example here, or additional information. It must be assigned to a numeric variable, and will return the text object ID if the text object was successfully created, or an error code. So this is interesting. So we already said that, yes, in order for us to draw text, we have to store this expression, the text_new, inside of a numeric variable. You don't have to create it, or you don't have to declare it. You can use value 1 through value 99. And what text_new returns is a number. So all that syntax, or all that line, what it returns is a number. If it returns a valid number, or a number between 0 and infinity, then that'll be the ID for that text annotation. We looked at the ID of a text annotation we hand drew on the chart. We clicked on it, we held the mouse button, and we saw that it was text number 0. So depending on how many text annotations you already have on the chart, they'll be numbered accordingly. So that is the number that gets returned by this whole expression. Now, if it doesn't return a number, if you get a negative number, then you'll get an error code. When I go here to my development environment, let me go here to my development environment, and I go to help, and I go to the TradeStation development environment help. Over here on the far top right, I can search for items and I can search for text. Let's see if if I search for text error. All right, so here at the very top, we have a topic that says Easy Language Drawing Object Error Codes. Let me click in here. And here are some of the error codes that can show up. Notice that they're all negative numbers because a positive number would be a valid number. We already established that it assigns numbers to those text annotations. But if it returns a negative number, it'll be an error. And we can use this table as to have an idea of what the error it is, you know? But for the most part, if you guys use the syntax the way that you should, or the way that the text underscore new is used, you shouldn't have any problems with that text annotation. Here's an example of how you can create a text programmatically. If the high is greater than the highest high for the past 10 bars, then value 1 equals text new, date, time, and high. And you can label it the 10-bar high. Now let's go ahead and do something very quick. I'm going to do very simple code. So because here the task is for us to create text, and then we can think about how we can configure our indicator to make it do what we want it to do. But for now, let's come over here to my development environment. And I'm going to start off with the new indicator. This is going to be exclamation JN text test. Just a test. I'm going to click OK. And my test is going to be value 1, exactly as I have in my PowerPoint. I'm going to do text underscore new. Take a look at Easy Language. When you type in text underscore new, it comes up in blue. We know that blue is because Easy Language understands what it is. It's a reserved word. It has a particular meaning. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to supply the 4 different parameters that are needed for this text annotation. We first need the date. I'm going to use the current bar's date. So date, if you just use the word date, it'll use the current bar's date. And then I can do time. And then I can do close. I'm using the current date, the current time, and the current close of the bar. And the text that I want to plot is going to be the close. As simple as that. I just want to be able to draw something on the chart right now to see if this line of code works, okay? Let's go ahead and I'm going to verify this to see what it looks like and to see what the behavior is. And then we can come back and make modifications to it. So let me go ahead and verify this. Okay, you can see that verification is successful. What I think will happen is that I'll have a problem with the plot here, because remember that this is an indicator that is calculated on every single tick. And I'm afraid that it's going to plot the word the close or the name the close on every single tick. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to go here to TradeStation. Let me remove the Bollinger Band here and reset the scale. Okay, so that's Microsoft trading at $283. That it? Yeah, $283. Let's go here to studies, add study. And I'm going to go here to exclamation JN. And this is just to text test right there. I click OK. I don't have any inputs. I'm going to click OK. And as I suspected, take a look at what's going on here. Yes, on every single bar, we have this added text that says the close, the close, the close. It's just putting a text label on every closing price. Now, if I go over here to the very front, well, it's not printing on every single tick. It's just calculating and moving the word close to the very end, which is pretty cool. Now, notice something that happened here. I did not change the properties of the study. So the study thinks that I'm going to put it in a subgraph. So it opened up space at the bottom of my chart, thinking that the indicator would go there because that's the default for the indicators. The text annotations are defaulted to the candles. So over here, I would have needed to go into the properties of the study, go into the chart scale, chart style, color, scaling here. I was looking for chart scale, but it's just scaling. And do same axis as underlying data, and then just verify one more time. Now, when I go back here to my trade station, I would have to remove the study. When let me clear something out. When you click on any of these text objects and you press delete, because I'm used to, just clicking on things on my chart to remove them, I find that to be the easiest. But when you do that on a drawing, like for example, text, you're going to get this dialog that says, the drawing object was added by a study. Would you like to remove the study that created the drawing object? Because it's going to assume that you just want to remove that drawing, which is not what I want. I want to remove the whole study. So do I want to remove the study? I'm going to say yes, and it removes the study for you. If I go back to studies and add study, I can add a text, the test. Here we go. Now it doesn't add that extra space at the bottom because it's not allowing space for an indicator. Okay. Robert, if you wanted to trade options from this chart, you just need to type in the symbol for the options. Remember, options have, the symbol starts with a symbol of the underline, then it has a space, but then you have like information on the expiration date, the type of option it is, if it's a put or a call, and the strike. Once you have all that information, you can just type it in and enter it on the chart. All right. So we were successful at putting text on the chart. Now let's go ahead and create an indicator. And it's an indicator that I'm going to share with everyone here. So let me go ahead and pull it up here. It's an indicator that I've used in the past. I made some modifications to it. And I'm just going to share it with everyone here. That's a zip folder. Can we tell it what type of text, like price? We can, Marcel. The text annotation can be anything. In my code, what I did is I just entered, the word, the close, but that can be anything. It can be a calculated value. I think we spoke about turning the value into a text string. I think you and I, Marcel, had that conversation over email. But let's go ahead and take a look at, we're gonna create that study that I'm sharing with everyone here, which is a study that plots ATR calculations on the chart. Sometimes a way that you can exit a position is by setting targets and stops based on ATR values. That's a way that many traders, exit out of their positions. So I thought it would be cool for you to be able to plot these values on the chart. Now, of course, we can have the ATR calculation on a chart, and that's something simple to do. For example, here for Microsoft, I can go to studies, add study, and then add the average true range. And let me make this a 60-minute chart. Okay, so you can see that in 60 minutes, we have an average true range of $2.31, which is okay. You can do the math in your head and say, well, if my ATR is $2.30, and if I want my target to be twice that, of course, that's $4.62 plus $283. I'm about, $287. You can do all that math in your head, or it would be very cool for you to have a printout of those levels right here on the screen. So that's what I created. That's what you have right there on the chart. And we'll try to do that right here with you in class. So let's go over here, and I'm going to use this same one. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this add !JN text ATR exits. I think I have an indicator already called like that. Yep. It's in use by another indicator, text ATR. Instead of exits, we'll call it levels. Okay. And that is our text annotation. But let's go ahead and think about what we want this to do. Okay. The first thing that I'm thinking of is like I want my indicator to calculate multiple targets and one stop. Let's do 2 targets and 1 stop, just to simplify the indicator a little bit more. I think the one that I sent you guys has 3 targets and 1 stop, which adds a little bit more lines of code, but you can make it as simple or as complex as you need it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 2 targets and just 1 regular stop. So the 2 targets, one is going to be at a particular ATR level, and the second one is going to be a little bit more, to the upside if it's a long position or the downside if it's a short trade. For this indicator, we're going to concentrate on just long trades. Again, just to add simplicity to the indicator, but you can always add the second side of the indicator, which is the short side. So I have target 1, target 2, and I have my stop level. Okay, those are the 3 things that I need to calculate. And of course, it's a calculated value. We said that we are going to be using ATR, and we need to bring in those calculations in there because even before we draw the text, we need to know what the levels are. The text string right here is just going to do whatever you tell it to print. And the example we did just a moment ago, it just typed in the close. We're going to tell it to print our ATR level and print that at the level of that ATR. So it's going to be pretty cool. So target 1, it's going to be AVG true range. AVG true range is the function for the ATR. A lot of times, I assume that you guys have a little bit of knowledge of Easylanguage and you can, pull up a function, but all the functions are going to be right here in the dictionary. And if you open up the Easylanguage.ell, give my computer a few seconds to respond. Unless it's completely frozen. Let's try that one more time. Dictionary, Easylanguage.ell, and you look inside Easylanguage.ell and you find the user function. So you have everything here that is already built in calculation. You can see that average true range is one of those functions that allows you to calculate an ATR. So target 1, average true range. I'm going to do it for 5 bars. An average true range of the most recent 5 bars. And I'm going to multiply that because, this average true range of 5 bars is going to be exactly the same for all 3 levels. I'm calculating the same thing. The thing that changes is the multiplication factor. So all these are going to be multiplied by a different factor. The first target, I'm going to set it at 3 times the ATR. The second target is going to be 5 times the ATR. And my stop level is going to be set at 2 times my ATR. Now, those levels or those factors that I'm specifying, I can also add inputs so that I can modify on the fly. Sometimes a 2 ATR stop may be a little bit too tight. So you may want to have that flexibility of adjusting that factor on the fly. So let me go ahead and do that. So target 1 factor. Okay, that's going to be my input. So this is going to be very similar to the other ones. Target 2 factor, and here it's not target 1, it's just going to be stop factor. So let's go ahead and do some cleaning up. I usually put down some of the calculations that I need, and now at this point I say, okay, stop. You need to do some cleanup. These words that I'm putting in here, those are not a part of the language, so I have to declare them somehow. These ones right here that I just typed in last, they're going to be inputs. That's where you come in and you can modify the inputs to give your indicator a little bit more flexibility. So target 1 factor is going to be 3, as we had previously stated, and target 2 factor is going to be 5, and the stop factor is going to be 2. Does that make sense? All right, so let me add the word level here. So I know that or level or price, I can use the word price too here too. It's target 1 price so that I know specifically that is a price that I'm looking for, not a level. So a level sounds like it's just a line. A price, I want the specific price for this calculation. So these 3 words are variables. Variables because they hold a calculation. So target 1 price, it's numeric. By the way, and if this is going, beyond what you know about Easylanguage, it's totally fine. All of us had to go through a class like this to learn how to build Easylanguage. The good thing is that once you learn how to build one and the steps that you have to follow to create a custom indicator, most of them are structured in the same way. So that's one of the benefits, so if this is the first time you're seeing Easylanguage, you're gonna get it. So just hang on tight with us, and it's not gonna be a long while until you actually get it. So target 2 price is also going to be numeric, and my stop price is also going to be numeric. All right. In the calculated values, we have to do something else. Well, first of all, we need a semicolon at the very end. That's the end of our statement. We need a semicolon. But these doesn't actually give us the price. This gives us the ATR value that we're looking for. So when we looked at the chart over here from Microsoft, we know that the ATR value is, why does my chart look like this? Okay, so we know that the ATR value is $2.32. We see the value. So the calculation over here is just taking that $2.31 and multiplying it by the factor, which gives us, 4, in this case, for the first target, it multiplies it by 3. So it's about $6, almost $7 of ATR value. We need to take those $7 and add them to a starting point. Now, if you already have a position, of course, you have an entry price. But if you don't, we can probably use the closing price. I can hard code the closing price and say close plus this whole thing. So first of all, calculate the ATR value and then add it on to the close. It gives you your price for that first target. But sometimes we may want to use a different starting point, maybe the entry price of your position. So what I did is I went here to the inputs and I said my entry price, the thing is the entry price is already taken. So it's a reserved word. So you want to stay away from reserved words. So I'm going to go position price. There we go. And I'm going to start the position price with the close of the bar. You see that? So instead of typing the close here, which is hard coded, I can just use position price. And that way you can change it in the inputs. So let me go ahead and add that. In the stop price would be the position price minus this expression. So we need some parentheses to control the order of operations. I'm going to put this whole expression inside parentheses so that it does this first and then it subtracts or adds. All right. Does that make sense? The factor is known, Marcel, because we are putting it up here as an input. So target 1 factor is 3, target 2 factor is 5, and stop factor is 2. So that's what we're doing. So it's putting that number in here. All right. So we have our calculated values here. Now, we can plot these calculated values if you wanted to, but the idea here is to not have to do it. We just want to see the levels on the screen, right? We are going to use similar value1 equals text new kind of syntax, but this is the idea. Do you guys remember when we were doing this and we created this indicator, how it plots on every single bar? Not very useful if you just want to see the levels on the current view, right? So this is not what I want. Let me go ahead and remove this and remove the ATR down here. So what I want the indicator to do is I want the indicator to calculate only if it's on the current bar. I don't want the indicator to calculate on historical bars. And the way that we limit that is by doing this: if last bar on chart. Take a look at what I'm doing, because this syntax, last bar on chart, is a function. It makes sure that whatever you put inside of the if then statement only happens if you're on the last bar of the chart, which I think is very useful for the type of indicators that we are going to create. Because then you don't want that text to appear on every single bar. You want it to appear just on the current bar. All right. And I think we are onto something here. Let's go ahead and do this. Value1 equals text new, date, time. Now take a look at where we're putting the text here. On the first example that we did, we put the text right on top of the close, and that's where the text appeared. What we want to, or the place where we want to put the first target is at that level, the target 1 price. So I'm going to replace the word close here with the target 1 price. So find where that target price is, and that's exactly where I want you to put my level. Now the text here can be target 1. Let's see how this looks. I'm going to verify this, and I'm going to put that on the chart to see what it looks like. Let's go here to the chart. I'm going to go here to studies, add studies. And I do recommend that as you write your indicators, you always come back to the chart, continuously, verify the indicator and test as you go along. It'll be much easier to catch errors at the beginning than have a whole completed programming code and then having to find the errors then, So this is my JN text ATR levels, and I'm clicking OK. Target 1. You see where the text is here? So I'm going to assume that the calculated value, that's where it put the target 1, which, yes, it's helpful. I know where the target 1 is, but it would be much more helpful if I knew what that price is, right? Instead of saying target 1, which is what I put inside quotations, I want to know what the target price is. So what I do is, instead of doing this, target 1 inside quotations, I'm going to do, or use the reserved word that turns any number or calculated number into a text string, meaning that it's not a number anymore. It considers it as a text. So I'm going to use this function. I mean, this is not a function, it's the reserved word because it comes up in blue. But whatever you put inside the parentheses of num to string is going to take the number and turn it into a string so that you can plot it as text. What is it that I'm going to turn into a string? Well, target 1. Target 1 price. I have to put in exactly what I used as the variable. So whatever that value is going to turn it into a text, and I'm putting in here a comma and a number 2, because num to string also requires you to supply how many decimal places do you want that number to have. The number 2 is exactly what that means. Just give me 2 decimal places, which is what you usually see in a price for a particular stock. Do not forget the parentheses. We're adding parentheses that belong to num to string, so we need an extra parentheses that goes with the text new expression. So it seems like I have two parentheses back. I do have two parentheses back to back, but they serve a purpose there. Okay, so let me verify this. And let's go back here to my chart. There we go. You see that? That's my ATR level, the first target at 290.20. Another thing that I wanted to show you is that what's going on with that price. You see how that price is updating in real time? Because that's how the indicators are written. You know, it's using the current close and a real-time calculation of the ATR. So the price is going to adjust tick by tick, which may be useful. Maybe that's the way you want it. But the way that I want it is a little bit more static. So I may want to backtrack the calculation a little bit so that I can see the prices as of the close of the previous bar for whatever reason. You know, I just want it to be static. So I can very quickly fix that by going over here to the code and saying, instead of using the close of the current bar, use the close of 1 bar ago. I verify this, and then I go back here to the chart, and you can see that it's still updating in real time. Why? Because yeah, it's using the close of the prior bar, but the ATR calculation that's going on here, it is a real-time ATR calculation, including the current bar. So if you want to add that same historical reference to your ATR calculation, you can also do that. Verify this, and when I go back to TradeStation, take a look. Oh, that's still updating in real time. Let me see something here. Oh, because whatever, I think the inputs are not automatically transferred, only changes to the code. So let me go back here to my indicator. Let me double click on the text. Now, double click on the text doesn't work. I'm going to go to Studies, Edit Studies, Customize, and you can see that the input didn't change to close 1 bar ago. I did it on the code, but didn't do it here in the indicator that was already applied. But once I do that, take a look at the calculated value is static. It's static because now it's referencing the ATR values of the prior bar and the closing of the prior bar. So it's not until this bar closes that I'll get an update on that level. Does that make sense? All right. Sometimes having a line right at the level also helps, just for a visual, because I'm not sure if the line is above or below. You know, a lot of times I forget what the alignment of that number is. The text, I think it goes, if you're looking at a specific dot, because this is what it's happening. The target price is a specific dot somewhere here on this chart. And then the text that you are plotting, it's either at the top of that dot, at the bottom of that dot, to the left, to the right. There's always an alignment in reference to that price. I believe the default is going to be bottom right. That's how the text is located around that price. But just to be sure, I can always have a line with this. So what I do is I can also go to my code and add a line. So value 2 equals TL underscore new. That's my trend line new. So date, time, target 1, price, date, time, target 1, price. This is pretty cool and very easy to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and start 3 bars back. So take the date, or maybe not the date. Since I'm looking at a 60-minute chart, just look at the time 3 bars ago. Well, I do need a reference here. So I know it's the same date. If you go 3 bars back, it's going to be the same date. But this will make sure that the line that you're creating starts 3 bars back and then stops on the current bar. Let's verify this. And let's go back to my TradeStation and take a look at where the line is. So yeah, it goes 1, 2, 3 bars back and it draws that line. But the line gives you a visual level of where the price would be. Notice how the text annotation is right at that point below the price point, but to the right. So the text is aligned to the left, but it's aligned to justified. It's left justified, but it means that it's right on the right-hand side of that price. I know it's a little bit confusing, but the more you look at it, the more sense it will make. But the line, I think, does gives us a little bit more detail as what that level is and where it is, okay? So now, what do we need to do? We need to create more. Let's go ahead and create the 2 other levels. Since a lot of this is repeated, I'm just going to copy these 2 lines and paste them again. Okay, and I'm just going to change some of the values so that this refers to the second target, not the first target. So I'm still using the date and the time, but instead of using target 1, I'm going to use target 2. And instead of using target 1 here, it's target 2. So I'm just changing the variable that's being used, target 2. So as soon as I verify that, and I go back to my trade station, you can see that I have my second level right here. So if I were to trade Microsoft right now, and I want a 3 ATR target, it should be at a price of 291.54. 5 times the ATR would bring me up to 296.33. Now let's go for the stop. How can one, oh, you want the line to go full screen? So you want the line to extend to both directions? You can set that as a property of the line. You know, I think if you watched our presentation on trend lines, we go into setting up, you know, styling preferences for a line. And I think if we go, let me show you here. Let me go here to help and go to the development environment. And if you go to TL_new, that's the reserved word. See, here's the reserved word to extend left, and here's the one that says extend right. So go into those 2 articles. It'll show you how you can set the styling of that trend line. All right. And to put in number 3 is exactly how I did it on the sample code that I submitted to you. So everything that I'm doing here is part of the code that I already shared with everyone in the zip folder. If you don't have it, open it up because the code is already written for you. It has 3 targets and 1 stop. I'm just doing 2 targets just to simplify the code a little bit. So here, I'm going to do the stop. I'm going to then paste again. One thing that I need here, though, is to change the values, the value numbers here. I forgot to do that. So we should not have repeated values because these are all separate items. So make sure that you're changing the values here as well so that there's no conflict when you go into deleting or removing things in your code. So here, we're going to do the stop price. So instead of a target price, is a stop price. And that's it. It's exactly the same thing. We're just using a different reference point or a different calculation. Let me verify this. And when I go back to my chart, you know, it may seem that the stop is not there, but we go back to what we said about text annotations, that they don't respect the scale. So if I squeeze my chart a little bit, that's where my stop is at 279.56 or 2 ATRs. So be aware of that because it will not show if it's off the scale. So you have to squeeze the scale so you can see it, all right? Let's see. Now let me show you a little problem here. I'm gonna go to a 1-minute chart. Okay, this is my 1 minute. I want you guys to see what happens when the minute ends. The minute's about to end in about 20 seconds. And you're gonna see what happens to this indicator. And it's something that we have to be aware of too. So let's wait 5 seconds. Take a look at what happened. A new bar is created and it plots new text, which is the way that we wrote the code. Now, this is not very useful because it's going to be very cluttered. At this point, I don't have an idea of which one's target one and which one's target two. I can sit there and try to calculate it in my head and say, well, this is the one. But I don't want this indicator to continuously plot text on every single new bar. Of course, you can reload the chart and it cleans it up, but that's not what I want to do. I want the indicator to automatically remove any items that I don't want. Let me show you how you can do that very quickly inside of this if-then statement. Notice that I'm doing everything on the last bar, and I'm using something that's called if bar status equals 2. If you haven't used bar status, right-click on bar status and go to definition of bar status, because it tells you what numbers it returns. The very interesting way of knowing where exactly on the bar you are. For example, if you want to know the opening of the tick, that's 0. That means if bar status equals 0, you know that you're in the opening tick of the bar. I'm setting the bar status equals 2, meaning the closing tick of the bar. So if you're on the closing tick of the bar, I want you to do the following, then begin. And I'm going to do a series of text delete, kind of reserved words, because that is a reserved word. It removes the text once you don't need it. So very interesting syntax. You wait until the close of the tick, and if you're in the close of the tick, I want you to remove everything. What text do I want to remove? I want to remove the text for value 1. Hold on, value 1. So let me repeat this syntax, this line. I'm just going to repeat it 3 times. Make sure my alignment is correct, because I have 3 texts: value 1, value 3, and value 5. And I can also remove the trend lines. I don't need them also. So that would be TL_delete. So that's for the trend lines. And this will be value 2. So let me repeat this 3 times so that it removes the trend lines as well. And this will be for value 2, value 4, and value 6. Just make sure that you're using the same value number that you're assigning each one of these elements so that it knows exactly what it needs to remove. And all I need is another and here. Remember that this is an if-then statement inside of your bigger if-then statement, which is something that we need to be structured this way. Let's go ahead and verify this. And here, if bar status equals 2, we missed something. Oh, we missed that. Bar status of plot number 1 equals 2. Let me pause my notifications. They're driving me nuts here. So let's go here. Okay, perfect. So let's verify again. Now let's go back to the chart. Now this is still a 1-minute chart. So the 1-minute chart, that bar is about to close in, where's my trade station time? So now, you see? So a new bar is created. It removes the old lines, it removes the old numbers, and you're just left with the current values. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the comments that are coming in here. So on the code, the values here, of course, they're just to create some separation. The number doesn't really have any impact on where the line is going to be plotted. Remember that we are very specific as to where we want the text to appear and where we want the line to appear. So the numbering here is just it doesn't have any effect on the calculated value. So you can do these numbers in any sequence. I mean, I can make this value 19 or odd numbers 94, and I make one 72. It doesn't really matter because they're just little containers. holding what the real value is. Yes, let me show you or send you, Jim, what I have here for everyone. That's the PDF and also the zip folder, which has a little bit more, it has the same indicator that we just wrote here in class with an additional target. All right. So let's see. Can one replace the TL you have? For sure. I mean, you want to replace it with what, Marcel? Because yeah, you can do pretty much anything. The code is open and you can modify it to any way that you need. If you don't like the trend line, you can just remove it altogether. I just feel like when you go to a chart, it gives you a little nice trend line of where the value would be. The one I showed before. Not sure I understand what you mean, Marcel. This is the one that I created for long trades. One of the nice things about this indicator, the way that I sent it over to you guys, is that you can go to studies and edit studies and enter a custom price. What's your position price? Let me go here to an open position. Let's say that I have a position open on Coca-Cola. Let me go here to Coca-Cola. And let's account orders and positions. Let's just turn that on so that I can see where my position is. Okay, so looking at Coca-Cola, let me go to a daily time frame. So looking at Coca-Cola, you can see that I entered at 61.78. That's where my position is. So this indicator that I'm sending you, you can go to edit studies, customize it, and then have your position price. So instead of using close 1 bar ago, I can enter 61.78. And then it calculates those levels based on my entry price, which is, a little bit more flexibility, because sometimes you may want to enter your trades based on a different entry price. Okay. Oh, for long trend lines across the chart. Yeah, it would just be, you can either do a longer look back reference. For example, if I come here and I say, for these trend lines, I want you to look back, 30 bars. That's just a starting point. Now that would be an easy way to extend those lines even more. Just go 30 bars back, or you can do 300 bars back. It just goes back in history and plots. So let's go here and verify. And when I go back here to my trade station, then I have longer lines because now it's using 300 bars. Okay, that would be an easy way for you to extend those lines if you wanted to, instead of using the extend left or extend right, which are built-in reserved words. Okay. All right, guys, this is it. I think I went over, a little bit, so I apologize for that. Just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page when writing the indicator. So I appreciate you guys' time. Next time, we'll continue, working on different indicators. Just keep in mind that tomorrow it's a holiday. No sessions right here in Masterclass. In fact, the office closes tomorrow. Most markets are closed. So I hope that everyone enjoys their long weekend. And I hope to see you next Monday. So everyone, have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.